50, 25, 25. That's what I've been saying for a long time, and I think it works, meaning your portfolio should comprise of 50% in Bitcoin, 25% in big caps, which is anything more or less with 8 billion in market cap. And then 25% in mid, small, micro caps. And the reason for this is because you want Bitcoin for stability when things turn sour, but also for growth. There are hyper growth moments where only Bitcoin goes up and alts do not.
Hey guys, welcome back to the show today. I'm here with the one and only George. How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for doing this, man. I've been watching your videos since basically day one. I'm a big fan. I would like to ask you straight away, off the box, how was your journey into crypto? How you started?
It's been a long journey. I was in IT for probably 15 years before I got introduced to Bitcoin, and that was just randomly. I mean, to be honest, I got burned really badly for people that are around my age or older remembers the 2008 housing bubble in the U.S. Stock market crash. That was when the first bailout happened, and a lot of banks were rescued. But I got absolutely destroyed in the markets around that time. So I really didn't pay attention to any kind of investments, unfortunately, because I could have caught Bitcoin a year or two afterwards because I wasn't ready in IT, but I was so distraught by my losses. I didn't really pay attention until 2013. So I randomly came across an article that talked about this new currency, digital currency, Bitcoin, that hit $1,000. And I'm like, what the hell is this? Why did I miss this? Right. And then I learned about how to mine. So I built up these GPU rigs in my basement and I started mining Litecoin at the time because Bitcoin transitioned to ASIC miners already. And, I want to get started right away. So I started mining Litecoin for maybe like 4 or 5 months. Then things started going down in 2014. I didn't really understand a 4-year cycle. And back then, really, it was the very first cycle. Not a whole lot of people knew what to expect. But Bitcoin started crashing down and so did Litecoin, and I got out. That's kind of like my first stint into crypto. And then 2017 rolled around, Bitcoin's back up to $1,000. So I maybe made a mistake by exiting. So I got back in 2017, started educating myself more, learning about what's going on. 2017 was exciting because Ethereum became big. Ethereum did have an ICO prior years, but then it really didn't come out on the market until 2017. And that's why 2017 was a little bit different, but overall, learned more and started my channel in 2017 and, been doing live shows every day, now twice a day for years now. So
Amazing. What a story. Where do you think we are now with the cycle, with the Bitcoin cycle?
I think we're exactly now that we're a few cycles in, we have seen the 2013 cycle, 2017 cycle, 2021 cycle. I mean, if you're looking at the patterns, they look almost identical. This cycle, we're moving a little bit faster because of the ETFs. For the first time in history, we have Bitcoin SPY ETFs in the US. That's a big deal. Wall Street's been gobbling up as much Bitcoin as they can. That's why we're a little bit ahead of the cycle. But if you look at all previous cycles, Bitcoin didn't start moving until like 5-6 months after a halving event. It happens every single time. So if you look at, we had a halving event back in April. Hey, things should start moving around October timeframe, right? And I think more or less we're following that path. I think we're starting a parabolic bull run. Up until then, maybe October, maybe a little bit early, September, August, whatever it may be, I think we're right at the cusp of that next huge wave up, like what we saw in 2021 and 2017. I think we're just right there. I think people are just getting impatient right now because we had a terrific March where Bitcoin hit 73,000. But people don't realize that we were just really ahead of the cycle, and people are becoming a little bit disinterested and a little negative because we're still hovering below that. But I mean, if you're looking at previous cycles, we were just way ahead of the game. And even now, where we are, I think we're perfectly in a good spot. And then later this year, we're going to see a tremendous rise.
I agree. It's funny when people are expecting something from the halvings, like it's a non-event for retail, right? Because like you said, nothing happens immediately. It takes time for, the 50% reduction to take place. Many first timers, like first time to go before the all-time high prior to the halving, never happened before. We have the ETF, like you said, so they might change in the game. I mean, do you see in your map of possibility a top for the cycle this year in 2024?
I see no reason to think the top is going to be in 2024. I mean, it makes no sense. This 4-year cycle thing is almost like a phenomenon. Like, people don't quite understand why we have 4-year cycle, why we top out, and why we go down. And you could make an argument like it's kind of like self-fulfilling prophecy. Based on the first cycle, people didn't know what to expect. But based on the second cycle, we saw kind of the same thing, which was about a year and a half after the halving event, we have a top and then we come back down, right? And then people look at it and they're like, why did it happen? You could make an argument from a TA perspective that we were just extremely overbought. There's too much FOMO. So of course the bubble needed to pop. But there are some that also studied previous patterns and saw that, hey, this is the time to sell, right? So it's almost like self-fulfilling. In 2021, we kind of saw the same thing, even though 2020 was a little bit different because of the pandemic and stuff. But overall, the cycle was the same. People saw that, hey, the halving event occurred. This is the time to start buying. Bitcoin started going up in a big way, right? And then towards the end, people started selling, anticipating that Bitcoin's going to go down. So it's almost like a self-fulfilling kind of cycle where you have a lot of retail investors predicting when to buy and then predicting when to sell, right? And it actually causes the things to happen. But this cycle, even though we're moving in the same direction, it's different because now we have institutions. And we never had institutional interest before. You can't tell me that the ETFs had no effect on Bitcoin when $70+ billion have been eaten up by the ETFs within 2 months, 3 months, right? It makes a difference. And when you take that much Bitcoin out of circulation, you can't tell me that that makes no difference. There's no difference out. No, because ultimately why Bitcoin goes up is price, right? The price follows supply and demand. So if the demand goes up, supply goes down, what happens? The price goes up. That's just how it works, right? If there's not enough demand and supply goes up, then of course the price goes down. But we know that doesn't happen because Bitcoin supply is finite and it keeps going down, especially with the ETFs and institutions buying by billions, tens of billions. It's going to continue to go down, right? This doesn't stop. So that's why I really don't see anything stopping 2024.
I couldn't agree more with you. If you look into the ETF itself, I mean, and look back into gold, when 2004 the ETF launched, it took time, by the way. So we're crashing all the records, by the way. So the ETF for Bitcoin is going phenomenally fast. And yet it's the beginning. We've seen Wyoming and other states in the US using pension funds. So the gene is out, the bottle is open, but it takes time for everyone to FOMO in. And I think, I don't know if you would agree with me, but I feel like we are about to witness institutional FOMO. I talked to Matt Hogan, which is a CIO for Bitwise, and he said, if you are not allocating 1% of your portfolio in Bitcoin, you are effectively shorting it. And data is out. Everyone can see is outperforming everything. Like the second best asset year to date yesterday was silver, and it was like 20% smaller than Bitcoin. So people are seeing the data, they're seeing it is more accessible now with the ETF. They don't have to think about the ownership part of it, which is probably one of the most complicated part. So like you said, I think they are changing it. Do you see like a super cycle coming through?
Yeah, I think that's more likely than, say, a cycle top in 2024, because I just don't see that buying is going to stop. And retail also, because retail following previous patterns, they're just going to continue buying. And I really just don't see a top until sometime in 2025. Now, with that said, the super top, some people have speculated, and I think that's more plausible because, again, due to these big boys, the institutions and banks and public trade companies, if they're holding so much of the supply, are they really all going to be like retail investors and say, okay, it's a year and a half past the halving event, it's time to dump? I just don't think that they're doing the same thing. A lot of these big companies now, they're just buying Bitcoin and they're DCing like retail investors, and they plan on holding long term because Michael Saylor and MicroStrategy kind of paved the way and showed them that holding Bitcoin long term is actually a good strategy, right? Michael Saylor is looking like an absolute genius right now, despite being ridiculed for so many years for buying so much, and Wall Street was trying to destroy him, right? Saying, just look at this greedy fool. He has no idea what he's doing. His conviction in Bitcoin is way too strong. He's going to end up crashing MicroStrategy. But look at it now. Now, if you're looking like a freaking genius, everyone's paying attention to MicroStrategy, and all these other companies like MetaPlanet from Japan and others are FOMOing in and doing the same thing, right? So these guys, I don't think they look at the cycle the same way retail investors do, right? I think they're holding Bitcoin long term, and more, quite frankly, more and more people are paying attention to how governments are dealing with inflation and hyperinflation and monetary policy, all these things that a lot of people are worried about. So they're turning to something better too, and that's Bitcoin. I think the likelihood of a super cycle is probably a lot higher than people think. And I think the definition of a super cycle is also going to be different, because even though I think there is very likely chance to have a super cycle, that doesn't mean that Bitcoin won't go down ever, right? I'm just saying that it breaks the previous patterns of, okay, an 80% drop from the top, and then we have like 1 to 2 years of crypto winter. Then we have the halving event and we start going up. I'm not saying that that won't happen, but we can have an accelerated version of that where maybe Bitcoin drops down 40% or 50%. And maybe we only stay down for a year. And then we start coming back up in a big way and we break through new top before the next halving event. So, I mean, we could have an accelerated, say, crypto winter, or a very tame version of crypto winter, right? And I think that would still constitute as a super cycle because we basically have broken through what we have done before, right? So it could be a version of that as well.
I like that. I think I'm in line as well with what you described, because at the end of the day, volatility is supposed to reduce. I mean, either way, up and down, when the asset becomes more established in society. So Bitcoin has been running for quite a bit. Now institutions have some. El Salvador, I mean, there is so many things to be bullish on. And by the way, today we are sitting around the $70,000. And a few years ago, people were popping champagne. So in retrospective, people forget how fast are we going. You know, I have a bunch of people in my network, I'm sure you do as well. They don't have any exposure into crypto, and they all often ask me, what's the best portfolio? Like, and I say all the time, it doesn't exist. It depends on your age, your risk, your tolerance, and all these things. But I have a 3-bag strategy, as I call it, which is basically in a way where 1 bag I will never sell my Bitcoin. I don't care. It can go to $1 million or to $1. It's there, store, out, never sell. The other bag I used to play the cycle, the 4-year cycle. So I used to figure out how much money I need to survive for a cycle, which is 4 years. And I plan my rent, my car, my petrol, my vacations. And the other bag is the one that I use to speculate, which means I'm going to sell some of it when the price goes, quote, down, and rebuy it when it's lower. So do you have a strategy for this cycle? Like, what's your plan to go into it?
You know, what you described is pretty interesting. I haven't heard anyone describe it as like a 3-bag kind of holding. But more or less, I think people that have been in this space for a while, I think they have the same kind of strategy. That just I haven't heard it explained that way, but it's interesting. But yeah, I'm with you. I try to simplify things as much as possible, and here's how I do it. I look at my total portfolio, right? And whatever I have, first of all, in terms of like newbies, people coming in, I think having a breakup of 50, 25, 25. That's what I've been saying for a long time, and I think it works, meaning your portfolio should comprise of 50% in Bitcoin, 25% in big caps, which is anything more or less with 8 billion in market cap. And then 25% in mid, small, micro caps. And the reason for this is because you want Bitcoin for stability when things turn sour, but also for growth. There are hyper growth moments where only Bitcoin goes up and alts do not, right? So 50% in Bitcoin gives you that really stability and growth. The big caps have a little bit less stability, but they have a little bit more growth, right? So it helps you in a bull run. It kind of hurts you in a bear market, but that's where the Bitcoin comes in. And then 25% in mid caps, small caps, micro caps, and that's more like hyper growth, right? In a bull market, they will really carry your portfolio. So first of all, that is what I preach and kind of follow. But also outside of this, now I'm looking at, okay, cash. How much cash do I have? So I look at it like from this perspective, 25, anywhere from 25 to 35% in cash at all times. And I think having this makes it very simple because people always ask me, like, okay, how do I take profits? When it's going up, how do I know how to take profits, when to take profits, how much to take profits, and so forth, right? So here's a really easy strategy. As the market is moving upwards, you'll notice that the cash piles percentage will start dropping, right? If your portfolio is 10,000 today and it's 20,000 tomorrow, well, of course, then that cash pile of 2 to 3 or 4,000 is going to be a smaller percentage of your portfolio. So if you notice that it's not in that range yet anymore, 20 to 30, 35%, well, that means you should take some out and put it in a cash pile, right? So you're locking in those gains. And that's great because if the market suddenly dips and there's a big correction or something, you have that cash to buy the dip and to DCA, right? So I think it's a really good strategy, but to fully utilize this is as we're going up in the cycle, okay, and we notice that Bitcoin is now really, really high. Bitcoin is now 200,000 or 250,000, 300,000, and we're still in 2025, right? And there may be some people that are like, I don't know, I should start selling, right? Or I need to take profits because we could be at the top. We just don't know. That's where, hey, you can make a conscious decision to increase your cash pile. That 25%, 30%, 35%, hey, raise it up by 10%. Now go up to a 40% cash pile or a 50% cash pile, right? As long as you stay with that strategy where you're upping the cash pile and you're making sure you're staying true to it, then you could hold it forever. Whatever's left in your portfolio, you could hold it, okay? Even if Bitcoin goes from 200,000 down to 100,000 and it sucks, or even 200,000 down to 60,000 again, it's going to suck. But you know what's not going to suck? You have 50% in cash now that you could continue to buy with, right? You could DCA low again and start a cycle, and every single cycle you're going to end up with more Bitcoin, more crypto, and you're going to get more wealth every single 4 years, basically, right? So that's kind of how I do it now. It's like I don't separate my bags like you, like say, oh, I'll have this forever, or this for speculative play, or this for for playing the cycles. I just make sure that I have that cash pile, and I make sure that I'm always taking profits, making sure I have that specific percentage, and I will up that percentage as we go higher in the market. So that's kind of how I look at it.
I love this. So many good things, guys. Take notes because George is, is spreading some gem as always. I love it because I've done a few cycles myself, and if I could reassume a bunch of errors I've done a lot. I've learned a lot, putting my face into the mud. For example, one, never take profit. I never took profit when I should have, because that's greed. It's always about greed and fear, or sell and buy, whatever you want to label them. So when I say take profit, I mean it. Take it into stable coins, into fiat, into gold. Take them off completely, or decide to strategize maybe into USDT if you like stable coins, but don't regamble into something else, because that's not profit taking, right? Would you agree? Like if you buy something else, that's just like another move, right? Another trade.
Yeah, I mean, it's upping your risk goes up, right? Because if you go into stable or fiat, obviously you get to keep that. You don't have to worry about that going down further. With alts, you do, but of course, there are alts that outperform Bitcoin at times, and there are times that it doesn't, right? And that's where, again, trying to simplify things. If you keep the 50, 25, 25 rule, which is just the guidance, obviously people could deviate from that. You can have a higher Bitcoin tolerance or percentage at 70 or 80 or 90%. But I think as long as you stay true to a model and try not to deviate and try not to outsmart the market, okay, that's when people usually lose. When there are people that try to outsmart the market either by converting to alts or doing a lot of alts or memes or whatever, or doing a lot of trading, like I feel like in the end, when you tally it all up, versus had you just held and DCA'd, you would make more with holding and DCA, right? Like a lot of people have told me that, even though they may have at the time, they may have thought that they're making the right move or they even made money. They can be trading something and they're like, oh, I'm up $1,000. That's great, right? But then they don't calculate, well, had I been just holding Bitcoin, I'd be up $2,000 versus just being up 1,000 by trading. So that's the thing. A lot of people in the end, they look at like the 4 years I've been in a cycle, I've been doing this and this and this, and I think I'm doing well. And then they go back and calculate, okay, if I'd done none of that, and I just continue to put all my money into Bitcoin, for example, or whatever, like I would be up so much more. A lot of people don't get to that realization until they've been in this space for a long time. And I'm not saying that that's the only way to profit. There are really profitable traders. There are really people that get lucky with memes and they make $1 billion by holding a meme. Of course, those scenarios do happen, but they're very rare, especially for someone coming new into this space. They're not going to experience those kind of things, right? They're going to feel the FOMO. They're going to feel panic. And they're going to make mistakes. They're going to fall, to their emotions, basically, right? So that's why I try to make things really simple with my content, what I'm trying to do. And people may think, oh, I'm regurgitating the same thing over and over again. But the fact of the matter is, every cycle, there are new people that come in. And they haven't heard the same things that I've been saying for 4 years, right? There are always new people coming in. That's why I stay with my message, and I've been successful at that, but that's the honest truth. I think there are just a lot of people that are trying to outsmart the market and they're not good at it. And then they end up just losing a lot of money.
I agree. Those are the exception, not the rule, right? So what happens is people buy the top and sell the bottom. That's it. I mean, retail is the exit liquidity of the market, period. And then someone sometimes outsmart the system, which is probably like a small percentage. But like you said, in reality, the whole system is designed to actually make money off retail. That's why it's called dumb money, right? Because people are FOMOing into something without knowing what it is. They didn't study anything. They have no conviction. Their neighbor told them, or their cousin say, buy this token and you become millionaire. And then you lose everything, like exactly like when you go to the casino, this kind of stuff. I couldn't agree more. And it's funny that the most simple thing to do, which is buy consistently and hodl, is the most difficult, because people want to outsmart the system, saying, oh, I'm going to make up my own plan. And then in the process, you lose everything.
The reason why I think that is because most people come to crypto because they hear about someone making millions. So I think most people come into crypto, especially retail. When I say most people, retail people come in, they want to make fast money. Right? They see crypto as a fast way of making money, which is why they come in and they rush. So they see Bitcoin at 67,000 or 70,000 and they're like, well, it's too high. I'm not going to get into Bitcoin. I want to get into a meme. I want to get into the next hot meme that will make me a millionaire in a week, right? Or they get into something and like, this is too slow. So let me switch from this to this to this. So that's the problem. And very, very rarely does someone come into crypto and make a boatload of money that quickly. Crypto in general, Bitcoin in general, is the fastest moving asset on the planet. But still, sometimes you got to wait years. A lot of people don't want to hear that. They don't want to hear that maybe you bought at top, so now I need a DCA for 3 years. And then in year 4, I'm going to be doubling, tripling, quadrupling, 10x my money. Even if you tell them, hey, you go 10x your money if you hold for 3 years, that to them is not worth it. Oh my God, 3 years is so long. I can't possibly wait 3 years for a 10x. That's the wrong kind of mentality, because outside of crypto, what else can give you a 10x in 3 years? Like nothing will do that. So, but that's the thing, for some people, I think coming in, they just get the wrong perception. They think they can make millions right away. But if they simply realize just having a little patience and, of course, learning about what's going on in the space can make you tremendous wealth within a very short amount of time. If they realize that, then we wouldn't have so many panic sellers. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, super well said. I mean, I don't know anyone in my network who has done a couple of cycles, so 8 years, and is not financially happy with their decision. Because exactly like you said, if you just follow this simple recipe, which is you buy consistently on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis, whatever you want, for a couple of cycles, you will be in profit. It doesn't, I mean, it's there to see. You can do the math. It doesn't exist someone who has lost money by doing so. On the contrary, if you YOLO your whole life savings into a frog coin or whatever, well, then that's a different play. So it's much more risky. And speaking about altcoins, I mean, do you have anything you are like blue chips that you are invested and or interested?
I mean, I'm a big Solana bull, so I think Solana is going to do very well this cycle. I mean, it's one of the surest bets, I think, for this cycle. If you just look at Solana and look at anything measurable with Solana, like volume and active users and TVL and just the growth of their DEXs, DeFi offerings, and a whole lot of projects that have come aboard, I think Solana is going to be a powerhouse going forward. But there's, of course, others that I believe in. And there's some past L1s, L2s that have done well. Like Base, for example, is a newer one that is really blowing up right now. I think Avalanche is an oldie, sort of, from 2021, but they're really into gaming and embracing memes. I do like them. And there's several other projects in the space. I mean, we have resurgence of, I think we're going to have resurgence of games, which hasn't really taken off yet, but RWA is something new. AI is new. There are a lot of new promising, I guess, categories or niches. Sticking with the big and tried and true guys, there's nothing wrong with that. I think people tend to always look at something new, but even what exists can still bring tremendous gains. For example, BNB. Look at BNB just recently broke a recent high, and no one was paying attention to BNB. But you have AI plays like Fetch AI that's going to be converted to ASI soon. But Fetch AI had a tremendous 2023 and 2024, and so many others are kind of making waves, even though they've been some new and some have been around for a while. So I mean, I don't know. I'm kind of mixed with a few things, but primarily it's just Bitcoin for me. But Solana is a big holding for me, and several of these other chains are big holders too.
Solana surprised me a lot because after FTX, I'm not gonna lie, I was fairly public about it. I thought they would have gone under because FTX had a huge investment into it, and they came back roaring so much. It's just incredible. So I agree with you. I think it's going to do well indeed. And is there anything else you would like besides crypto, like gold or other asset, real estate? Is there anything else you play with, or crypto is your niche?
Yeah, it's like almost all my wealth in crypto. I think holding gold and silver are silly when you have Bitcoin is around. The arguments of why one should hold gold, I think it's irrelevant this day and age. Some people say, well, what if you have a global blackout? What if there's no electricity so you can't use Bitcoin? Well, does anyone carry bars of gold around? If you bring a bar of gold into your favorite box store or restaurant, are they going to take shavings of gold? I mean, it's silly. You can't use gold as a medium of exchange anymore, right? And if we do have World War III and everyone is killed and now we're in an apocalypse, gold's not going to be worth anything. It's bullets and food and ammunition that's going to be worth something, right? So like all these cases where like gold bugs try to make you think that having a physical bar of gold is better than a digital currency like Bitcoin are really irrelevant in this day and age. So that's why if you're going to be holding an asset and you're trying to build wealth, you stick with one. I honestly believe if you diversify way too much, you're never going to truly build that wealth. Build that wealth with one asset that you understand and you believe in, then diversify, right? And for me, that's Bitcoin. The name of the game for me is to accumulate as much Bitcoin as I can with my lifetime, right? After I built that wealth, sure, I could diversify in real estate or possibly, gold or stocks or other things, but I'm just sticking with crypto right now.
Yeah, same page. Super well said. I completely agree with you. I was talking to a friend not long ago, and she said to me, "Yeah, but quantum computing." I was like, "Okay, look, the day something is going to be able to crack the most secure, safe network, which is the blockchain and Bitcoin. Think about everything else. Your bank account. I mean, do you really think the problem will be, oh my God, the world is on fire, my treasure? I mean, like you said, there are other problems, right? And by the way, most people, they invest in gold, they don't even have the gold with themselves. There is a custodian somewhere. So you don't have it anyway. So
Really good Yeah, they don't even hold it. Like most people that invest in gold are buying paper gold. So if there is a disaster and there's no internet, they're not getting access to it. They're not going to go to a gold vault and say, "Hey, I own $1 million of the gold stock, so you got to give me $1 million of the gold." That's not going to happen. And what you said about quantum computing, that's why I've always laughed at that. I'm glad you brought that up because there are certain altcoins that say, "Well, we're quantum resistant." I'm like, just think about it, right? If quantum computer ever gets to a point where it can crack any kind of encryption, they're gonna get access to nuclear codes. They can hack banks. They can hack stock exchanges. Like there are much worse things to worry about if quantum computer ever gets to that point. And who's to say by then we won't have quantum computers that are also defending the networks that the other quantum computers are trying to hack against, right? So that's just like way out in the future. And there's way more worse things we should worry about than whether or not Bitcoin will one day be cracked by a quantum computer. I mean, do you really think anyone's going to try to crack into your wallet? I mean, there are much bigger places they could crack to get billions or trillions of money from rather than your wallet, right? Like, it's just silly.
If you do invest some time and you have to invest it for real and study this asset, there is no scenario where you are not bullish, where you are a bear. It's impossible because if you truly understand what ETH is accomplished already, which is digital property, transportability, divisibility. I mean, I face it. I lived in London most of my life, even though I was born in Italy, but I moved when I was in my 20s. I mean, I traveled a lot around, but I lived most of my life in the UK, in London, and I had gold. I mean, I had on paper. So someone had on my behalf a little bit of a compartment with my gold. And one day when I wanted to move to Dubai, I realized how much uncomfortable that is. Well, first of all, I couldn't even go and see it. And even if I could see it, they could put a post-it. And then the minute I go, there is your name on it. So it says Maurizio. And then I go away, they put George. I don't know, right? And then I couldn't go to the airport and say, I'm going to London. I'm going to Dubai from London with 2 bags full of gold. They won't let me take it. So then that's a problem. And it costs to store. So it's like, what's going on? Is it like, it cannot be how people think about properties these days, right?
I agree.
But George, thank you so much. You've been an absolute legend. I mean, like I said, we're so lucky to have you contributing in this fantastic space. You pull out so much content, so my hat's off to you. Thank you so much for everything you do.
Thanks for having me. This is a great interview. I enjoy the questions. I enjoy your perspective too on a lot of things.
We are George. Love you, man. Speak soon.
Take care.
Bye. Bye-bye.